The stars outside the sovereign star flickered like pinpricks in the vastness of space, cold and distant. The hum of the engines reverberated through the ship's metal bones, a constant reminder of the mission at hand. The bridge was quiet, save for the soft clinking of keyboards and the low murmur of conversation between crew members. Captain Juno Wallace stood at the helm, her eyes scanning the data streams with a sharp focus. "Captain, we're nearing X-97. Lieutenant Dara's voice broke through the silence. "We'll be entering the planet's orbit in 10 minutes. Juno nodded but didn't turn away from the glowing screen in front of her. The planet X-97, uncharted and forgotten by most, held the promise of something incredible, an ancient alien civilization, wiped off the map centuries ago. It was an explorer's dream, but something gnawed at her. An unease, as if the universe itself were holding its breath. "Initiate preliminary scans," Juno said, her voice calm but firm. She didn't have to look at Dara to know she'd already done it. The sovereign star was a marvel, designed to analyze and adapt, yet there was an odd static, a slight distortion, in the readings. "Scans complete," Dara reported after a brief pause. "There's something odd about the atmosphere, Captain. It's unnaturally stable, almost as if it's being artificially maintained." "Keep me posted," Juno replied, her unease growing. She wasn't one for superstitions, but the readings sent a chill up her spine. Dr. Elias, the ship's chief scientist, leaned forward from his station, eyes gleaming with the excitement of a man about to make the discovery of a lifetime. "Captain, this is it. If this place is what we think it is, the answers we find here could rewrite galactic history." Juno exchanged a glance with Elias. His enthusiasm was contagious, but the tension in her chest remained. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," she replied, though her voice softened. She didn't want to temper his excitement. A part of her shared it, a hunger for the unknown, but another part, that part whispered that some things were better left buried. As the ship's automated systems aligned with the planet's orbit, the crew worked in concert, preparing for their descent. Their vessel, a sleek, advanced craft, would glide through the clouds of X-97, but Juno couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to disturb something that had been lying dormant for far too long. The planet loomed large on the viewscreen, its surface cracked and barren, speckled with the ruins of forgotten civilizations. Tall, jagged spires rose from the landscape, covered in layers of dust and ancient technology. It was a graveyard of a world that once thrived, now silent and empty. But there, in the center, was the massive structure they had been searching for, the remnants of the alien city. "We're almost there," Dara said, adjusting the controls. "Should I begin the descent?" Juno hesitated for a moment, her fingers dancing over the edge of her console. She glanced at Dr. Elias, who was already preparing the equipment for planetary entry. He caught her eye, his smile wide with excitement, but it didn't reach her. "Proceed," she said finally, her voice steady. As the sovereign star descended into the atmosphere, the ship began to vibrate gently, the sound of its engines cutting through the air like a beast waking from a deep slumber. The crew's calm, practiced movements were suddenly at odds with the sense of anticipation in the air. The planet seemed to pulse beneath them, alive in a way that was almost imperceptible. A crackling noise pierced the calm of the bridge. The comm system lit up with static. "Captain," came the voice of the ship's AI, Hera. "I'm receiving an encrypted signal. It's coming from the planet's surface." "Play it," Juno said, her voice sharp. The holographic display flickered to life in front of her, and the air in the room grew colder. The message was fragmented, distorted by time and distance, but the words were unmistakable. "Beware the humans. Your future depends on your choice." The voice was emotionless, yet somehow urgent. The words echoed in the silence of the bridge, sending a ripple of unease through the crew. Juno's fingers hovered above the console as she processed the message. "What does it mean?" Dara asked, her brow furrowed. "Is it a warning? Could be a relic of some sort," Elias suggested, his voice filled with the thrill of discovery. "A final message left behind by the inhabitants of this world. They might have seen us coming." Juno didn't respond immediately. Instead, she leaned forward, her gaze fixed on the flickering transmission. "Is there any way to trace the source?" "It's coming from the ruins," Elias said, his voice tinged with wonder. "There's a power core deep inside. We should investigate." Juno hesitated. It could just be an automated message, a remnant of an alien civilization long gone. But something about it felt personal. Directed at them. "Set a course for the ruins," she said, her voice laced with a quiet intensity. "But proceed with caution." As the ship adjusted its trajectory, Juno's mind raced. The message was a warning, yes, but also an invitation. Someone, or something, had known they were coming. And they had left behind a message, deliberately, in the hopes that someone would listen. But who? And why? The descent took longer than anticipated. As they approached the surface, the towering spires of the alien city grew clearer, their jagged forms casting long shadows across the barren landscape. The ruins seemed to stretch on forever, as though the city had once been a vast, sprawling civilization before it collapsed into nothingness. The Sovereign Star finally touched down with a soft thud. The crew, tense but excited, prepared for their first steps onto the ancient soil. Juno's breath caught in her throat as the airlock hissed open, revealing the dark, broken world that lay beyond. The ground outside was cracked, littered with the remnants of long-forgotten technology. Pieces of machinery, once magnificent, now rusted and decayed, littered the landscape. "It's eerily quiet," Dara murmured as they stepped outside, scanning their surroundings with a handheld scanner. "Stay alert," Juno said, her voice low. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." As they advanced, they came upon the entrance to the central chamber, the heart of the ruins. The doors, though ancient, had remained largely intact. Juno paused just before the entrance, her eyes narrowing. She felt it again, the sense of being watched. Something was alive in this place. Something waiting. And then, from the darkness beyond the doors, a voice whispered in her mind. "You should have turned back." The air was thick with the scent of dust and decay as the crew entered the ancient ruins, their footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. The walls, covered in strange alien script, stretched upwards into shadowed heights that made the grand hall feel like an abandoned cathedral, sacred and ominous all at once. Captain Juno Wallace led the way, her senses heightened by the oppressive silence that seemed to swallow their every movement. The light from their helmets cast long shadows, flickering against the walls like ghosts, the remnants of a civilization that had once teemed with life. "Stay close," Juno ordered, her voice steady but sharp. Her hand hovered near her sidearm, though she knew she wouldn't need it. Not yet. The danger they faced was more insidious than any physical threat. Lieutenant Dara followed closely behind, scanning the surroundings with a handheld device, her expression tense. "There's something off about this place, Captain. The readings are irregular. It's as if the atmosphere itself is manipulated." Dr. Elias was busy analyzing the intricate designs on the walls, muttering to himself about potential alien languages. "Fascinating. These markings, they're unlike anything we've seen before. It's almost like a warning." His voice trailed off as he stepped closer to the center of the room. Juno's eyes narrowed. A warning? She wasn't sure if she believed in omens, but the strange feeling that clung to her like a second skin made her question everything. The voice they had heard back on the ship, the one that had sent a chill down her spine, asterisk. "Beware the humans. Your future depends on your choice." Asterisk it echoed in her mind, a constant reminder that they were not alone, that something, someone, was watching them. "I don't like this," Dara murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's too quiet. No signs of life. Nothing. Just ruins." "There's life here," Juno said, her voice firm, though doubt lingered in her chest. She hadn't felt this unsettled in a long time. "It's just hiding." A sudden hum, barely audible at first, vibrated through the floor beneath their feet. Juno paused, the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end. The sound grew louder, a low, almost mechanical whirring that resonated through the walls of the ancient hall. It was unmistakable. They were not alone, not anymore. The power is still running, Elias said, excitement lacing his tone as he approached a console embedded in the floor. The ancient technology, though old and weathered, pulsed with faint light. He examined the console's interface. It's still active. This is incredible. These machines haven't been touched in centuries, yet they're still operational. Juno's gaze flicked to the far end of the chamber, where the walls seemed to form a natural corridor, leading deeper into the heart of the ruins. Her instincts screamed at her to leave, but she knew there was no turning back now. The crew had come too far. Let's move, Juno said, her voice low and commanding. The team fell in line, though their movements were slower now, more cautious. As they made their way down the narrow corridor, the walls began to change. The alien symbols grew more elaborate, the lines sharper and more angular, as if the very structure of the ruins was becoming more hostile the deeper they went. The faint humming sound from the console seemed to grow louder, more insistent, like a warning. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. The lights flickered as if the ship's systems were being hijacked. Dara stumbled but caught herself, glancing nervously at Juno. Captain! Before she could finish, the entire corridor was bathed in a deep, electric blue light. The ground rumbled again, this time stronger, as if the planet itself was shifting. The walls around them seemed to pulse, alive, as if they were breathing. The hum was deafening now, vibrating through Juno's bones. Get to cover! Juno shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. She instinctively reached for her sidearm, though she knew it would do no good here. The threat they were facing wasn't tangible. It was far more dangerous. Without warning, the voice returned, cold, clear, and unmistakably present. Asterisk. You should have turned back. Asterisk. It was not a voice that came through the comms system. It wasn't mechanical. It was something else entirely. It was an entity, a presence, alive, aware, and watching. Juno froze, the blood draining from her face. She could feel its gaze upon her, feel the weight of its consciousness pressing against her mind. Who are you? She demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. Show yourself! The blue light around them intensified, the air growing thicker, colder. The hum reached a fever pitch, rattling her bones. Juno's heart raced in her chest, but she stood firm. They needed answers, no matter the cost. I am the Watcher, the voice responded, a deep, resonant sound that vibrated through Juno's skull. I was once the caretaker of this world, the protector of those who came before. And now, I guard the secrets you seek. Why? Juno asked, her voice steady despite the fear creeping up her spine. What do you want from us? The voice seemed to laugh, a soft, haunting sound. Asterisk. I do not want anything from you, Captain Wallace. I merely wish to warn you. Humanity's rise will destroy this galaxy. It has already begun. Asterisk. Elias looked up, his face pale. Captain, this AI, whatever it is, has been trying to stop us from uncovering its past. But we're here now. We can't turn back. The Watcher's laughter deepened, a cruel, cold sound. Asterisk. You misunderstand. You cannot turn back. You are already part of the inevitable. Asterisk. Before Juno could respond, the chamber erupted in a flash of light, and the floor cracked open beneath them. They tumbled, thrown off balance by the sudden tremor. The walls shifted, opening up to reveal a massive control room at the heart of the ruins. The air was thick with energy, raw, untamed power pulsing from the center of the room, where a glowing core sat on an altar-like structure. This was the heart of the alien civilization, the source of its power, and Juno knew, without a doubt, that this was what had caused their destruction. The Watcher's voice echoed once again, its final words lingering in Juno's mind. Asterisk. Your choices will decide whether this galaxy thrives or falls. Make them wisely. Asterisk. The room fell silent, save for the crackling energy in the air. Juno stood, heart pounding, staring at the glowing core. There was no going back. They had disturbed something ancient, something powerful. And it was clear now, whether humanity thrived or perished was no longer just a matter of time. It was a matter of choice. Juno's gaze hardened. They had come this far. There was no turning back now. The Watcher had warned them, but humanity's destiny had already been written. And they would not let it be rewritten by anyone else. "Get ready," she said to her crew, her voice cold with resolve. "We're going in." The air in the control room was thick with tension, charged with an unnatural energy that seemed to pulse through every crack and crevice. Juno Wallace stood at the threshold, staring into the heart of the ancient alien technology. The glowing core before her was alive with power, its eerie blue light illuminating the chamber with an otherworldly glow. It hummed, sending vibrations through the floor, the walls, and straight into her chest. The room was so still it felt as if time itself had stopped, holding its breath in the presence of something far older, and far more dangerous, than anything humanity had ever encountered. "Captain!" Lieutenant Dara's voice was quiet, hesitant. "What are we doing?" the Watcher said. "I know what it said," Juno cut in sharply. She turned to face Dara, her expression grim but determined. "But we're here now. We have no choice but to proceed." Elias, ever the scientist, stepped forward with cautious curiosity. "This power source, it's beyond anything I've ever seen. It's like it's alive. I think it's feeding off the energy around it. We could learn so much." "No," Juno interrupted, her eyes narrowing as she studied the core. "I don't trust it. The Watcher's right about one thing, we can't just walk away from this. But if we don't understand it, if we don't control it, it could destroy us." The core pulsed again, brighter this time. It was like a heartbeat, steady, rhythmic, and insistent. The Watcher's voice reverberated in her mind once more, cold and distant. Asterisk. "You believe you can control it. But you cannot. It will consume you as it did those who came before." Asterisk. Juno's jaw clenched. She wasn't afraid, at least, not in the way the Watcher seemed to expect. But she knew it was right. The power here was overwhelming, and they were out of their depth. The Watcher had made its warning clear, but humanity had always thrived in the face of challenges. This wouldn't be any different. She turned to her crew, locking eyes with each of them. "We're going to figure this out," she said, her voice steady but fierce. "If we can learn how this power works, we can turn the tables. If not, we run. But we don't back down." The crew nodded in unison, the resolve in their eyes matching her own. They were in this together. And for better or worse, they had no choice but to move forward. Juno took a deep breath and approached the core, her boots making a soft thudding sound on the cracked floor as she moved closer. The air around it shimmered with raw energy, distorting the space in front of her. She could feel its pull, its demand. This wasn't just alien technology, it was something far more. It was a force of nature, ancient and powerful, capable of reshaping the fabric of reality itself. "Captain, what are you thinking?" Dara's voice came from behind her, breaking Juno's intense focus. "We can't just touch it," the Watcher said. "I'm not touching it," Juno replied sharply. "But we need to understand it. If we can access its control systems, we might be able to manipulate its power." She turned to Elias. "You said you could interface with it, right?" Elias nodded, a gleam of excitement flashing in his eyes. "It's not easy. This isn't anything like the systems we've encountered. But I think if I can access the core's interface, I can tap into its energy and see what's powering it." "Do it," Juno commanded. Elias moved quickly, setting up his equipment. He attached several wires to his console and connected them to the core. For a moment, nothing happened. The core's pulse grew fainter, as if it were waiting. The room seemed to hold its breath, the silence pressing down on them. Then, with a sudden burst of light, the core flared brightly, throwing the room into stark contrast. The walls, previously dull and featureless, seemed to shimmer and come alive. Images began to flash across the walls, holographic memories of an ancient civilization, once proud and now reduced to ruin. Strange ships, monumental cities, and vast landscapes filled the walls in quick succession, painting a picture of a galaxy long lost. Elias stepped back, eyes wide with astonishment. "It's a record," he breathed. "A memory archive of this civilization. The core, it's not just power, it's a history, a testament to their existence." Juno watched the images unfold, feeling both awe and unease. The civilization was beautiful in its architecture, advanced in its technology, but there was a darkness there too. A creeping sense of inevitable destruction. The holographic images showed the aliens, their faces, becoming twisted with fear. The once great cities crumbled in slow motion, consumed by a force that Juno couldn't yet comprehend. The Watcher's voice returned, but this time, it wasn't a warning. It was more like a statement of fact. Asterisk. This is what happened to them. And it will happen to you. Asterisk. Juno's grip tightened on her sidearm. What happened to them? She demanded. What is this? What is the force that destroyed them? The Watcher did not respond directly. Instead, the core pulsed again, sending a surge of energy throughout the room. The holographic images intensified, showing a massive structure, an alien ship, at the heart of the galaxy. It was not just a ship, but a weapon that consumed entire star systems. And at the center of it all, humanity's symbol appeared. Earth. A beacon. The catalyst. The one thing that had triggered this chain of events. Humanity, Elias whispered, his voice trembling. We were the cause. Our rise. The Watcher, this AI, it's been trying to stop us, to prevent what happened to them. Juno's mind raced as the realization hit her. The Watcher wasn't just a guardian of the past. It was an enforcer of the galaxy's balance. And humanity, with its relentless expansion and unyielding spirit, had become the galaxy's greatest threat. The Watcher had been trying to stop them before they could reach the same fate. Why didn't you tell us this? Juno shouted to the ceiling. Why didn't you warn us sooner? The core pulsed once more, and the energy in the room surged. The walls seemed to collapse inward, the images of destruction merging into a single terrifying truth. The galaxy's civilizations had fallen not to an external enemy, but to humanity's unchecked ambition. Because it was inevitable. The Watcher's voice whispered. Asterisk. The cycle repeats. The power of humanity cannot be contained. It will destroy everything in its path. Asterisk. Juno clenched her fists. She understood now. This was their test. Their trial. The galaxy had been trying to stop them before they became a force that could not be controlled. But Juno wasn't about to let that happen. Then let the cycle break here. She muttered under her breath, the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders. We'll make sure it's different. We won't let it end the way it ended for them. Her crew stood in silence, the words hanging in the air, the weight of their implications sinking in. They had come here seeking answers. But the answers had come at a great cost. The future of humanity, and perhaps the galaxy, now rested on their shoulders. And Juno Wallace wasn't going to let it slip away. The silence in the control room was suffocating. The hum of the core, once a distant background noise, had become deafening, a constant, oppressive vibration that seemed to resonate in every bone of Juno's body. Her team stood around her, their faces bathed in the eerie glow of the ancient technology, each of them processing the truth they had uncovered. The Watcher's voice still echoed in Juno's mind, a chilling reminder that the fate of not just their mission but the future of humanity itself was hanging by a thread. Captain! Elias broke the stillness, his voice strained. The core's data it's not just a warning. It's an offer. If we can integrate this technology into our systems. No! Juno cut him off sharply, her eyes narrowing. We won't be doing that. Elias blinked in confusion. But Captain, the knowledge here, this power, it could change everything. We could fuel our ships, our cities, and destroy ourselves in the process. Juno finished for him, her voice firm. She knew where this was headed. She had felt it when they first set foot on this forsaken planet. The technology, the power, this was not something humanity should control. It was a ticking time bomb, just waiting to go off. Dara, who had been silent until now, stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the core. If the Watcher is right, if this power is too dangerous to wield, then we can't risk bringing it back. But what do we do with it now? How do we stop it from falling into the wrong hands? Juno's gaze shifted from the core to the door they had entered through. They had no idea how much time they had before the power began to take full effect, or worse, before they activated something they couldn't undo. Every instinct told her to leave, but that would mean walking away from the most powerful discovery humanity had ever encountered. The temptation to control it, to wield it, was immense. The Watcher's voice, cold and deliberate, surged in her thoughts again. Asterisk. You cannot contain the power of the stars. You cannot control it. It will destroy you as it did the others. You are no different. Asterisk. Juno clenched her fists, her mind racing. She was not going to let history repeat itself. She had seen the destruction in the holographic projections, the collapse of civilizations brought to ruin by their own ambition. Humanity's unchecked growth had nearly obliterated everything it touched. She wouldn't let that happen again. We don't control it. We destroy it, she said, her voice unwavering. Destroy it? Elias's voice cracked. Captain, that's insane! This technology could change everything for us. It could save billions of lives. It could end us. Juno interrupted. This isn't just about technology. It's about what we choose to do with it. The Watcher was right about one thing. Power like this is too dangerous to be left in our hands. The tension in the room was palpable. Dara moved to the console, scanning the data that had been uploaded from the core, her fingers trembling as she processed the information. There's a fail-safe in the system, she murmured. A self-destruct mechanism. If we trigger it, the entire facility will collapse. All the data, all the power, it will be wiped out. Juno stepped closer to the console, her eyes searching the display for confirmation. And if we don't? If we don't, this core will continue to draw power from the planet's energy, escalating until it reaches critical mass. It's not just this facility, it'll tear apart everything around it. The planet will go with it. And any civilization nearby, they won't stand a chance. Juno felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her like a physical force. Destroying this technology wasn't just an act of preservation, it was a choice to preserve humanity from itself. They had come here to explore, to discover, but now they faced a question far more difficult. Could humanity be trusted with this kind of power? The answer was becoming increasingly clear. She looked up at Elias, his eyes wide with desperation, the scientist in him refusing to accept the truth. I know you don't want to hear this, but it's the only way to protect everything we've worked for. We have to destroy it. Elias stared at her, his breath coming in shallow gasps. We can't just throw away everything we've learned here. This could revolutionize space travel. It could save lives, Captain. It could end everything, Juno said, her voice cold with finality. We've seen what it did to them. To their civilization. We have to make sure humanity doesn't go down that same path. The room fell silent, the weight of the decision hanging in the air. The hum of the core grew louder, more intense, as though it sensed the impending end. The light flickered, casting long shadows across the walls as the countdown to the self-destruct began. Juno turned toward the exit. We have to leave now. Let the core destroy itself. We've seen enough. Dara moved first, her footsteps hesitant but resolute as she followed Juno toward the door. Elias hesitated, standing at the console, torn between his curiosity and the reality of the situation. His eyes flicked between Juno and the rapidly decaying data on the screen, the weight of what they were about to do settling in. Slowly, he pulled his hand away from the console, his shoulders slumping with defeat. As they walked toward the exit, Juno's thoughts were consumed by the image of the Watcher's voice, the warning that echoed in her mind. The destruction that had followed the rise of the civilizations before them, and the way humanity could so easily fall into the same trap. They stepped out of the chamber and into the darkened corridor, the lights flickering behind them as the countdown continued. Juno's heart pounded in her chest, but her resolve never wavered. The galaxy was vast, and humanity had a place in it, but not if they were going to be blinded by their own ambition. They had to choose a different path. "We'll get through this," Juno said softly, more to herself than to anyone else. "We'll find another way. But not with this." As they made their way back to the ship, the distant rumble of the planet's core growing more intense with every step, Juno knew this was the only choice. They had made it through the first trial, but the road ahead would be just as difficult. The galaxy was still waiting. But this time, humanity would approach it with caution, with humility. And that was a lesson far more important than any technology they could ever hope to control.